Now to discuss the game, we've brought in WIUX's Sports Director, Ben Heisler. Now, Ben, that game was just painful to watch.
It really was, Kristin, because you take a look at this Indiana Hoosier team all throughout this season, and really you look at their offense and say, well, this is a better offense than that. Their defense at times really has struggled, but I watched Ben Chappell under center on Saturday, and he did not look comfortable in the pocket at all, had a difficult time finding a lot of his wide receivers, and really the running game did not get itself established. Demetrius McCray with only 50-plus yards on the day. They really missed Darius Willis out there. So again, this was at one point a 3-0 football team, now back to their usual ways at 3-3. And Kristin, if they're going to get themselves back together, they need to find a way to get that offense a little bit more consistent.
I definitely agree with that, Ben. Now let's just take a look at some of the final stats from that game. Just like in the contest against Ohio State, the Cavaliers held the Hoosier offense to a slim 272 total yards of offense, while IU's defense couldn't contain UVA quarterback Jamil Sewell. The senior signal caller completed 20 of his 30 passes for 308 yards and a touchdown, and rushing 7 times for 42 yards. Yet again for IU's Ben Chappell, his numbers didn't match his performance as the quarterback completed 22 of his 33 passes for 177 yards, but threw a pick and was sacked twice. Now, Ben, you mentioned that Ben Chappell looked a little uneasy in Saturday's game against UVA, and I feel like that has been pretty consistent the last couple weeks for him.
Now, right now,
problem?
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're looking at his numbers right now on the season, has a couple more interceptions than touchdowns. He needs to be able to go back and finding the open weapons across the field. Look at the type of season that Tandon Doss has had this year. DeMarlo Belcho right behind him, and Terrence Turner, with the exception of that fumble on Saturday, has had a season as well. And knowing that the running game is going to be consistent for him, especially with the emergence of Darius Willis in his redshirt freshman season, that's going to help out Chappell tremendously. But right now, he's on pace to throw 10 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. He's going to have to get that turned around, guys, if he's going to have a consistent season and get Indiana back to a 6-win season.
Well, Ben, I think the best thing for the Hoosiers to do now is just to put that game behind them, get it out of the way, never think about it again. They have Illinois this weekend for homecoming. Illinois is struggling this season too. Let's take a look at how they did last week against Michigan State. The Illini looking for a spark. They benched 4-year starter Juice Williams in favor of Eddie McGee, but Michigan State was starting a new quarterback as well. Keith Nickel, with his first start of the season, completes that one down the sideline to Mark Dell for a 23-yard gain. That would set up Michigan State inside the 5-yard line, and they hand it off to Glenn Winston, who plows his way in for a 2-yard touchdown run. Michigan State is up 7-0 early. Winston with 14 carries and 65 yards on the afternoon. Later in the first, Michigan State driving again. They hand it off to Larry Caper, who cuts his way down the right sideline for a 17-yard touchdown run. Deja vu all over again for the Illini. Michigan State is up 14-0. Caper with 95 yards on the ground on the day. Michigan State driving yet again, but Winston fumbles this time at the goal line. The Illini defense coming up big, but the offense was just pitiful in this game. Illinois trails Michigan State 17-0 at the half. Eddie McGee now in the third quarter fakes the handoff, and it is intercepted by Michigan State's Danny Fortner. McGee was 2 of 11 for 31 yards and an interception on the afternoon. That one is taken back by Fortner to put up Michigan State 24-0. So why not put Juice Williams back in the game? And he provided the Illini with a little spark. Drives him down the field, hands it off to Mikel LaShore for a touchdown run. It's 24-7 Michigan State. But no matter how good your quarterback is, he's going to struggle if your offensive line is struggling. Right here, Williams is sacked by Greg Jones. That was a problem for Illinois all afternoon. Juice would lead him to another touchdown, but they still fall 24-14 and are now 1-4 on the season. All right, so Ben, it's hard to believe, but this is the same, almost exact same Illinois team that was in the Rose Bowl 2 seasons ago. Last year they started out good, but they faltered down the stretch, didn't make a bowl game, and this year so far for them has just been disastrous.
I couldn't agree with you more, Casey. You take a look at a player like Juice Williams, and this is a guy that really has been the heart and soul of this Illinois team, and right now he's struggling. He had a better game on Saturday against Michigan State, 7 of 17. He's got 2 touchdowns, 4 interceptions on the season, really been one of the keys to Illinois' lack of offense so far on the season. Aurelius Ben, their top wide receiver, has been struggling with a little bit of an injury. He hasn't gotten himself going, only 13 receptions all year and no touchdowns. It's sort of a similar situation, guys, to what Indiana's been struggling with, getting some more consistency in the offensive end. And their rushing attack hasn't been there as well.
Well, and I think another similarity between this Illinois team and I guess last year's Indiana squad is kind of the flip-flopping between quarterbacks.
Sure. Last
year is Ben Chappell and Kellen Lewis kind of switching starts. This year, Eddie McGee and Juice Williams kind of in a little bit of a controversy. That's got to be tough for the players, not knowing, who's going to start any given game.
Yeah, I think it's a terrific comparison because Kellen Lewis at one point last year was the all-time leading thrower for Indiana history past Antoine Randall, and a lot of that success had to do with his success with James Hardy from a couple seasons ago. But Kellen Lewis Lewis was a dominant quarterback, and even though he had some of his struggles off the field in the spring, he was the starting quarterback of this team. And when you're trying to throw around different quarterbacks within the lineup, the offensive line needs to get used to a different snap count, the wide receivers and the running game. All of it is going to change unless you have consistency at that position. So I think to go with Eddie McGee was sort of a spark play by Coach Ron Zook. It didn't end up working out. Juice came back into the game. And I think if Illinois is looking for any sort of success this year, they need to go with Juice Williams the rest of the time if they're looking to try and turn the season on a winning note.
Well, and as we mentioned earlier, it'll be interesting to see who starts for Illinois this Saturday, 7 p.m. at Memorial Stadium for the homecoming game. The Hoosiers will take on the Fighting Illini. Both teams obviously sort of struggling right now. Indiana has some more wins, but Illinois has played a much tougher schedule so far. What do you think the keys will be for that game?
I think, first of all, it starts with the quarterback position in Ben Chappell. Right now, he's completing 64% of his passes, and that's a big advantage for Indiana right now. Again, get that offensive game going because that's one of the strengths of this team. You need to be able to establish the running game. Hopefully, a guy like Darius Willis will be able to come out and really explode out of the backfield like he did against the University of Michigan. I also think that you need to stop Aurelius Ben at all costs. He's a terrific receiver, one of the top wide receivers projected to go in the next year or so into the NFL. Stop him, double team him, do whatever the heck you have to do to make sure he does not get the football, and do not let the juices flow all over this football field. If Indiana has shown anything all year on the defensive side other than the fact that they cannot stop the run, they cannot stop a running quarterback. And Juice Williams, obviously, is a good pocket passer as well, but if you contain him and leave him in the pocket and double team Aurelius Ben, this should be a game that Indiana wins on Saturday. Believe it or not, they could come up and they should win this game.
Yeah, you're right, Ben. And I think out of all the teams in the Big Ten coming off that loss last week, Indiana wants to play Illinois, who's also struggling.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. And right now, the Hoosiers 0-2 with the direction of Coach Lynch against Illinois. It'd be nice to turn it around during homecoming weekend.
Yeah, it definitely would.
All right, well, when we come back, IU men's soccer takes on in-state rival Butler in hopes of becoming the most dominant team in the state of Indiana.
And head basketball coach Tom Crean met with the media last week. See what he had to say and much, much more, all coming up on Hoosier Sports Nite.